equipment. And right there, you know that the alternatives are going to be economically far superior, because you don't need all that money to capture nanoparticles and dioxins if you are not burning the stuff in the first place. Very few jobs. The Brasher incinerator, 300 million euros, 80 jobs. In contrast, you've seen the Nova Scotia issue. It wastes valuable time. It takes about 25 years or more to pay off the massive capital investment costs involved with building an incinerator. And even though the capital costs for the incinerator are 93 million, by the time you've gone through 25 years, it's like a mortgage on a house. You look at how much money you spend after 25 years, you're up to probably 240, 250 million, maybe more. And if there's whatever it is, inflation or whatever, indexes and stuff, it will be even more. We don't have 25 years to waste on a non-sustainable solution. It stifles innovation. This is a quote from Ludwig Kramer, who was head of the EU waste management on Panorama. He says, an incinerator needs to be fed for about 20 to 30 years, and in order to be economic, needs an enormous input from quite a region. So for 20 to 30 years, you stifle innovation, you stifle alternatives, just in order to feed the monster that you built. And I think you're going to see that in Jersey. You're going to see it in Jersey before you see it in Guernsey. Incinerator produces a toxic ash, 4 tons in, 1 ton out. Nobody wants this ash. 90% is bottom ash that falls through the grates, it's under the furnace. 10% is the fly ash captured in the boilers, etc., and in the air pollution control device. The bottom ash is toxic. The fly ash is very toxic. This is incinerator ash in wonderfully environmentally conscious Sweden. Actually, I got to be honest, I don't know when that photograph was taken. Maybe they're not quite so cavalier today. It's difficult to get rid of. In Germany and Switzerland, the fly ash is put into nylon bags and placed in salt mines. In Japan, some incinerators vitrify the ash, both the fly ash and in some cases the bottom ash, but that takes nearly all their energy. And in Denmark, beautiful, clean, green Denmark, they have a wonderful solution for the ash. They send it all to Norway. I heard a preposterous claim that somebody is going to buy the fly ash from this company. Well, indeed, there'll be a lot of incinerator operators in the United States that would be very delighted to hear that somebody wants to buy the ash from them. The one company that set up to recycle ash in the United States went bankrupt. You still need a landfill for the toxic ash, so you're not getting rid of landfills. They put many toxic and persistent substances into the air, particularly concerned about toxic metals, lead, cadmium, mercury, arsenic. They cannot be destroyed. They're elements. And then new compounds are produced in the burning process, the most toxic we've ever made in a chemical laboratory. That shook me up 25 years ago. And today, the news is even more uncomfortable because these come out on nanoparticles. Now, nanoparticles, the problem here is there's no regulation for nanoparticles. The regulation for particulate is 10 microns, and that's by mass, not on the number of particles. So there's no regulation and there's no monitoring of nanoparticles coming out of incinerators. Nanoparticles are less than 1 micron. There's an excellent paper written by Professor Vivian Howard, who I know very well, who is currently a professor in Northern Ireland. That's his email address. It's about a 30-page paper. It's right up to date. The references range from 1999 to 2009. And I recommend, if anybody wants to pursue the issue of nanoparticles, you should get this paper and give it to Suez and ask them to respond to it, because everything is documented there scientifically on the concerns that people have for these nanoparticles from incinerators. Now, there's nothing new about nanoparticles. What is new is the use of nanoparticles in products, which has spawned the science of nanotoxicology. People ask the question, is there any health problems? And the shock is there are very serious health problems associated with nanoparticles. And yes, nanoparticles are produced in diesel trucks, industry, power stations. Yes, yes, yes. But the truth is that the nanoparticles produced by incinerators will be the most toxic nanoparticles that we can produce in any practice. The problem, nanoparticles are not efficiently captured by air pollution control devices. They're so tiny. They travel long distances. They remain suspended for long periods of time. They go deep down into the lungs. And there's where the problem really happens. They're so tiny, they cross the lung membranes. There's no defense for them. So they're straight into the bloodstream. Once they're in the bloodstream, they're distributed through every tissue in the body. And of course, they can also enter those tissues. They can even cross the blood-brain barrier. And here is a particle in the brain. And it contains lead, barium, chromium, iron, and silicon. Dioxins and incineration. I've got a more detailed PowerPoint on this, and I can make it available to Richard eventually. Major concerns. Dioxins accumulate in animal fat. 1 liter of cow's milk gives the same dose of dioxin as breathing the air next to the cows for 8 months. That was a study that we did in 1987, and it's been vindicated since. Dioxins steadily accumulate in human body fat. We can't get rid of them. The liver cannot get rid of dioxins. Normally the liver converts fat-soluble toxic substances into water-soluble products, and once you've done that, you can excrete them through the kidney. But if you can't do that, then they've got nowhere to go but into your body fat, where they steadily accumulated. Now the male cannot get rid of them, but a woman can. A woman can get rid of dioxins by having a baby. So here's the issue. The woman is accumulating the dioxins in her body fat, largely from the food supply, for 25, whatever age she is when she has her first body, and then in 9 months, the woman is clearing most of the dioxin from her fat into the baby, into the fetus, and the fetus is so tiny that now the effective concentration in the fetus is enormous. So something that didn't affect the woman that we know about has the potential of affecting the fetus, and particularly because we know that dioxins behave like fat-soluble hormones, and they disrupt at least 6 different hormonal systems, including male and female sex hormones and thyroid hormones, which means that dioxins have the potential to interfering with fetal brain development and the thyroid hormones. And yes, I don't want to overly scare you. I think this is a scary situation myself. I've always felt so. However, there is absolutely true that the modern incinerator is putting out less dioxins than the old clunkers in the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s. They've got better. But I don't think they're out of the woods yet. I think there are more problems, particularly with the nanoparticles, which they've yet to even deal with. Here's a paper which deals with dioxins on fetal development. That's by Linda Birnbaum, who is now the director of the National Institute for Environmental Health Studies, a very important position in the United States. She's had to withstand enormous pressure from industry, upholding the notion that dioxins were bad for human health. A whole book has been written about endocrine disruptors by Thea Coben. And this is not so very long ago, in July of 2003, the Institute of Medicine, which is part of the National Academies in the United States, I'm nearly finished, said we need a high public health priority in reducing the consumption of dioxin-like compounds by young girls long before pregnancy. And they advocated substituting low-fat or skim milk for whole milk, foods lower in animal fat. And ask anybody in marketing how devastating that is. It isn't just the reality, it's the perception of reality. Right now, we're trying to stop them building an incinerator in Parma, Italy, right next to the largest pasta manufacturer in the world. And you know about Parmesan cheese, and you know probably about Parmesan ham. The citizens are in outrage about that. Dioxins and incineration. I think these facts are irrefutable. We have too much dioxin in our food right now, animal fat.